Hello students, welcome back to your class on deadlocks. Probably the previous class we had discussed about your banker's algorithm introduction, where we saw to the data structure and why do we need banker's algorithm. So it was the algorithm under your deadlock avoidance. So this banker's algorithm was used when we have multiple instances of the resource type. Now let us see to the safety and the resource allocation algorithm. So starting with your safety algorithm. So this is your safety algorithm. We have already taken the introduction of the data structure, that is what is available, what is need, what is max, and all of it. Now going with the algorithm. So the first step tells you're going to initialize the available to work and finish of I is false. Now what is finish of I? I is the process. So it is taking, if you have 5 process, then it would be finish of 5. We are initializing it to false, indicating that every process has not completed. So the finish is false, indicating that the process has not completed. When the process completes it, then we treat the finish to be true. So the second step tells if the finish of I is false and the need is less than the work is nothing but your available. So if the need of the process Pi is less than the work, then probably we can be granting it, else we will go to step 4. So here if you are going to step 4, it indicates that finish of I is true, indicating that it has completed. Now let me take it with process P1. Now if process P1 has still not completed, so finish of process P1 is false, and if P1's need is less than the available, then probably my available will be work plus the allocation, that is nothing my available. So I am able to grant the resources only if need is less than the available. I will be checking like this for each process, by which I can be developing my safe sequence. So for every process I keep checking if the need is less than the available. If it is so, then I allocate, and then my available will be changing. I will add the allocation for the next process. Here if I have to tell for process 1, if I have allocated, then for the next process 2 my available will change, that I will be including the allocation of process P1 as well. So like that, for every process that is there in the system, we check and we develop a safe sequence and then tell the system is in a safe state. So if I have to take down with your example, now see here, my available is 332. Now what is my need of the first process P0? It is 743. Now what does it tell? The need must be less than the work, that is your available. Is it less? No. So I cannot be giving it to P0. Now let me go for the next process, that is P1. P1, is it less? Yes. Then I could be allocating it to P1. So when I take up the problem, we'll execute the same problem further. So this is about how your safety algorithm works. Now the next algorithm that we have is the resource request algorithm. Now in a system, if there is a process that is requesting for a new resource, can that be granted? If that is granted, is that living in a safe state or not? Again, we will have to recheck with the safety algorithm. Now, what is a resource request? If I say process P1 is requesting for a new resource of type A, it is, let me say, it is requesting for 2 instances of the resource type A. The same thing is mentioned here. If a process Pi is requesting for a resource type J and k instances of that resource type J. Now what is the first step? We check if the request is less than the need. If so, we go to step 2. Now what if the request is greater than the need? Then probably the process is exceeding the maximum claim. Now what do I mean by the maximum claim? When we started with the deadlock avoidance algorithm, we started with a thumb rule. So what was the thumb rule? The process has to claim the resource prior its execution. So the process has to claim what are the resources and the number of resources it needs before it starts its execution. So if the new request is greater than the need, probably it has exceeded the maximum claim, which is an error. Now, if it is less than the need, the next thing that we do is we check if it is less than the available also. If it is greater than the available, probably at that instance of time the resource is not available and the process have to wait for the resources to be available. Now if the request is less than the available as well, then probably we assume that it is allocated. Now if it is allocated, is it leaving the system in a safe state? To do the same, we check by modifying these vectors. Now if the request is being allocated, now the available is available minus the request. Now whatever request is made, it is allocated, so I am deducting that request from the available. And also the allocation is where we are adding the request, assuming that we have allocated. Now the allocation becomes allocation plus the request. And again the need matrix is also changed. Now the need becomes need minus the request. So we make an assumption that if the request is satisfied, is it leaving the system in the safe state? If it is leaving the system in the safe state, how do we do that? We again check back by running the safety algorithm. If it is leaving the system in the safe state, then the request shall be immediately granted. If it is not leaving the system in the safe state, we restore it to the previous state or we roll back to the previous state. Now let us take an example for the same to see how your safety algorithm and resource request algorithm is working. Probably we had the glimpse of this problem previously when I had to explain about the data structure. So by the previous class you have already had a clarity of what is allocation matrix, what is max and what is the available. Here there are 5 processes P0 to P4 and I have 3 resource type A, B and C. So the resource type A has 10 instances, B of 5 instances and C of 7 instances. So if this is your given, and probably we will have to calculate the need matrix. And how do we calculate the need matrix? The need matrix is max minus the allocation. So this is your need matrix. With this need matrix, we say this is the safe sequence. But how did the safe sequence come? Let us run the safety algorithm. So considering your safety algorithm, the first step, it tells we have m number of resources, that is 3 resources, and n number of processes, that is 5 processes. I am initializing my available to work. So now my work is 332. Now finish of I is false for all because none of it is finished initially. Now let me take the first process, that is for I of 0 is nothing but your process P naught. So I of 0 is your process P naught. Now the process P naught's need is 743. You can see it here also, it is 743. Now process P naught is greater than your work. It is greater than 332. Students, there is one piece of advice I want to give. Do not take this as a whole number. Probably you will have solving this problems further as a part of your assignment, as a part of your IA or your external examinations. You may be having to solve this problem. Do not take this number as 743 or this is not 332. Please treat this numbers individually. It is 743, not 743. Fine. Having said that, now 743 is greater than your 332. Fine. So I cannot be satisfying the first process, that is P naught. So here that is why P naught is not the part of the safe sequence. Now let us see process P1, that is I is equal to 1. So the need of I is 122. Is 122 less than the work? Yes. My work is 332. Is it less than the work? Yes, it is less than the work. Now finish of 1 that was false will be turned to true because it is now the part of the safe sequence. Now let us go to step 3. You can see here. So the finish of process 1 is true. And now my available or the work is changed. It is allocation plus the work. If you look into the matrix before, it is allocation, that is 200 was my allocation plus my work was 332. So now this is my work. Now having 532, can I satisfy my process P2? For I is equal to 2 is nothing but your process P2. No. Now the need of process P2 is 600. So again, which is greater than the work. So this cannot be satisfied. Now let me move to the next process, that is process P3. Now process P3, the need is 011. Can I satisfy 011? Yes, because it is less than the need. The need is 532. So I can be satisfying my process P3. So it is again leaving the system in a safe state. So that is my next safe process. So now what will be my available? My available changes. So my previous available was, work was 532 plus the allocation of the process P3, that is 211. Now my work is 743. Now let me go to the next process, that is process P4. Can I satisfy? Yes. 4, the need of process P4 is 431. 431 is less than 743. So the next process is P4. So after P4 completes, P4 is now true and the allocation of P4 is added to the work. Now it is 745 is my present work. Now after this, can I go back from the first? So we are left out with process P0 and process P2. So again I go back to the first process, that is process P0. Now can I satisfy process P0? Yes, I can be doing it. Now the need of process P0 is 743 and now my available or work is 745. So I can be satisfying P0 and after that my work or available becomes 755. Now you can see here all the processes are true except P2. The next I will check is, can I be satisfying P2 now? Yes, I can be doing so because the need of P2 is less than the available or work. I can be doing it. So now the allocation is 10, 5, 7 where I have, it is the actual number of instances that we started with. Now we can see all the finish is now true. Hence, following this sequence leaves us in the safe state. You may get a problem giving this system derive the safe state. So this is the safe state. Process P1 followed by P3 and then P4, then P2 and then P1. If the execution happens in this particular sequence, this will leave the system in the safe state. Therefore, it is also a deadlock free state. We have seen the example of your safety algorithm. We have seen how the algorithm works and how do we come up with a safe sequence. Now let us see to the resource request algorithm. Now let us say, for example, process P1 is requesting for a new resource 102. Now how does the request algorithm work? Now if the request of process P1 is 102, the first step we check if it is less than the need. So what was the earlier need that we had of process P1? That is 122. So the request is definitely less than the need. So the next step that we do is we check if it is less than the available. Is the request less than the available? Yes, it is less than the available also. So what is the step 3? The step 3, we will be changing these vector or matrix. Now the available is request minus the available. That becomes the new available. So your new available is 230. And now the allocation becomes request plus the old allocation becomes your new allocation, that is 302. And the need matrix, previously we had 122. Now the need becomes request minus the need, which is 020. Now this is our new system. Remember one thing, the resource request algorithm checks if granting this request leaves the system in the safe state. Only then the request is granted, else it will not. Now assuming that it is granted, now this is our new system. What do I mean by the new system is, this is the new snapshot, that is the available is 230. With this available, we have to check if there we can be deriving a safe sequence. If we can derive a safe sequence, only then the request is granted, else it is denied. Now, after the resource request algorithm, we again have to run your safety algorithm. Now, the new available is 230. So, for the each process, we see whether it is turning to true. Again, running back, can I satisfy process P0 with 230? No, I cannot. Can I satisfy process P1? Yes. So after adding the allocation of P1, it is 532. Then I go to process P2. Now the process P2's need is 600, whereas the available is 532. Can I satisfy? No, I cannot. Now again let us see the next process, that is your process P3. So the need of process P3 is 011. Can I satisfy 011? Yes, because my available or work is 532. So process P3 becomes true. You can see here process P1 is true and well as process P3 is true. So after it is true, now the allocation of process P3 is added. So now my work or available is 743. With this, can I satisfy process P4? Yes, the need of P4 is 431, which is less than 743. Definitely I can be satisfying P4. So after P4 is completed, the allocation of P4 is added to the work or available. You can see P4 is now turned to true. Now we have again go back to the first process, that is P0. Now can I satisfy P0? Yes, the need of P0 is 743, whereas my available or work now is 745. I can be satisfying P0. So the last process that I am left out with, process P2. Now the need of process P2 is 600, which is less than the work, that is 755. So I can be satisfying P2 as well. So you can see all the process is turned to true. I am able to derive a safe sequence. There are times where you cannot satisfy and you cannot derive a safe sequence, so that request leaves the system in an unsafe state. So our safe sequence is P1, P3, P4, then P0 and finally P2. If the system follows this sequence, it will leave the system in a safe state. So hence it is leaving the system in a safe state. We can be granting the request of process P1. I have a small exercise for you. Please take a note of it. Now you have to check and tell if process P4's request of 330 can be granted, and also process P0's request 020 can be granted. So you have to run your resource request algorithm and then change the matrix, and with that change matrix you see if it is leaving the system in the safe state. Only then you can grant the request. You can try it as an exercise for these two processes. The next we have is the deadlock detection. So in handling the deadlock, we had seen we could be preventing a deadlock, avoiding a deadlock, and lastly we can detect a deadlock if it has already occurred in the system, and the recovery mechanism. So we are left out with deadlock detection and recovery. So now let us see, what if a system is entered a deadlock state? How do we first detect if there is a deadlock? Now for a single instance of resource type, we use wait for graph to detect if there is a deadlock. I have already discussed many a times, single instance of resource type is, now for example, we have the resource A, B, C. There is only one instance of resource type A, only one instance of resource type B, and only one instance of resource type C. If that is a scenario, if the resource type has a single instance, then we can be using the wait for graph, which is a slight variation of your resource allocation graph. So if there is a cycle, again it detects that there is a deadlock. If there is no cycle, it detects there is no deadlock. Now let us see how do we write the wait for graph. Now here we have shown the resource allocation graph as well. The same thing we are variating it for your wait for graph. Now first let us see what is the resource allocation graph has to tell. Now we have 5 processes, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, and we have 5 resources. I have told you earlier also, because it is a single instance, we are representing only a square. You can see nothing inside this. Clear? So we have 5 resources, R1, R2, R3, R4 and R5. So now process P1 is having resource R2 and is requesting for R1. Process P2 is having resource R1 and is requesting R3, R4 and R5. Process P3 is holding the resource R4 and is requesting R5. Process P4 is holding the resource 5 and is requesting the resource R2. Process P5 is holding the resource R3. Now, the same resource allocation graph is converted into the wait for graph, removing the resource vertex and collapsing the edges. Now let us see, this is the wait for graph that we have derived out of it. Now let us see how it is. You can see a request edge that is going from P4 to P1. That is nothing but P4 is requesting for a resource that is held by P1. And we can see P1 to P2. So P1 is requesting for a resource that is held by P2, that is nothing but your R1. So what does this graph tell? P1 is waiting for a resource held by P2. P2 is waiting for a resource held by P3 and P4. P3 is waiting for a resource held by P4 and P2 is waiting for a resource also held by P5. Now if there is a cycle, it indicates that there is a deadlock. Definitely you can see a cycle. So all these 4 processes, that is P1, P2, P3, P4 will be involved in a deadlock state. So this is how we will be detecting the deadlock in case of a single instance of resource type. Now let us see how deadlock is detected in case of multiple instances of the resource. Now, if there are several instances of the resource type, we again use your vectors and matrix. We use the available vector. Previous algorithms, by now you already know what is an available vector, and you know what is the allocation matrix and the request matrix. So these two matrix and a vector is used for the algorithm. Now let us see what is the algorithm. So the detection algorithm is as follows. Here again we are initializing the available to work. So again, initially finish of I is false. If allocation is not equal to 0, then finish of I is false, otherwise finish of I is true. Now if a process Pi, if there is a process Pi which is false, and if the request is less than the available, that is less than the work, we have initialized the available to work. So if the request is less than the work, then probably we will be changing the matrix by allocation plus work is the new work or the new available. So the allocation plus the available is the new available, and we again change the finish from false to true. We again go to step 2. We find another process, and again if that is false, and if the request is less than the work, we again next go to step 3 and we will be changing it to true. If we find no such process where the request is not less than the work or the request is greater than the work, after all the processes are giving up the resources also, then we go to step 4 and indicating that there is a deadlock. Certainly, deadlock detection either for a single instance or multiple instance is going to take lot more operations. Now let us see the example of how it is done. Now consider this example. We have 5 processes P0 to P5, and we have 3 resource type A, B and C. So the total number of resources in the system are 7 of type A, 2 of type B and 6 of type C. Now at the time T0, what is currently available is 0. Fine. Now according to the algorithm, we must make sure that we check if the request is less, and if we can allocate, then we are making it a true. This is the sequence that I have got. Let us see how we have got this sequence. Now, so initially work or available is all 0 and all the process is initialized to false. Now let me say the first process, that is your process P0 where I is 0. So that is also false. Now if process P0's request is less than the work, yes, it is less than the work. You can see here. So the request is less than or equal to the available. So I can be granting P0. Now after P0 is granted, I add this allocation to the available, that is my new available. Now my new available is 0, 1, 0. But can I satisfy the request of P1? No, I cannot be satisfy the request of P1. No, I cannot be satisfying with 0, 1, 0. Can I satisfy the request of P2? Yes, because it is less than the work. I will show it to you again here. So after P0 is done, we are adding that P0. So now this is my new available. You can see P0 is turned to true. Now let us see if I can do it for, we have seen it there, we cannot do it for P1. So I go for P2. Now I select P2. So P2 is false. And is P2 less than the new available? Yes, it is less than the new available or work. So I can be granting it. Now I will be adding the allocation of P2. That is, allocation of P2 is 303. So this allocation I will be adding to the work. So my new work or available is 313. You can see P0 and P2 is true now. Now with the new available 313, can I satisfy P1? Yes, I can be doing that. So P1's request is 202, which is less than the available. So I can be doing it. It will be added. Now you can see P0, P1, P2 is all true. I do the same way to your P3 and P4. So I can be satisfying your P3 and P4 as well. Now I am finding all the requests to be true. So when I can say all the requests to be true, only then I can tell that there is no deadlock. Even if I just change the order of execution and even then I am not able to come with a true, then probably it indicates that there is a deadlock. Now let us again see another example where it shows that there is a deadlock. Now consider this new request. Now I have changed the request matrix. It is not like before. You can see P2, which was previously 000, it is changed to 001. So it is requesting an additional instance of resource type C. Now if this is my request matrix, and what is the available that I had? My available was 000. So with this available and this request matrix, can I be satisfying or can it be deadlock free? Let us see now. Now I will be, if this is the available is less than the request, yes, that is for P0. Now P0's allocation was 010. Now that becomes the new available. Now what 010, can I satisfy P1? No, it is false again. Can I satisfy P2? No, it is false again. Can I satisfy P3? No, it is false again. Can I satisfy P4? No, it is false again. So now what is happening? P1, P2, P3, P4 is in a deadlock state. So there exists a deadlock with these four processes. So this is about your deadlock. So this is about your deadlock detection algorithm. So we have addressed to how could we be detecting a deadlock if there is a single instance, that is with your wait for graph. If there exists a cycle, it is a deadlock. If there is no cycle, it indicates that there is no deadlock. And now talking about multiple instance, we have the detection algorithm. So if we are able to satisfy the request, then if it is turning the process finish to true, then probably there is no deadlock. If the finish is ending up with false, then probably we end up with a deadlock. Now we have seen to the algorithms, we have seen to the graphs, but when do I run this graph? When do I actually call this detection algorithm? So there are two ways that we can be calling the detection algorithm, either periodically or when a request is not satisfied. So if the detection algorithm is called arbitrarily, there may be many cycles of the resource graph and we will not be able to tell if the deadlock is actually occurred or not. So there are two ways to call it. Either we call it periodically. What I mean periodically is, if I schedule to call a deadlock detection algorithm every 1 hour or every 10 minutes, so it automatically in the background runs the deadlock detection algorithm every 10 minutes. Or the other method is, a process is requesting for the resource and the request could not be immediately granted. We run the deadlock detection algorithm to check if there is a deadlock. If there is no deadlock, probably the process can continue waiting for the resources. So this is about your deadlock detection. The next and the last topic that we have on your deadlocks is deadlock recovery. So once the system has entered the deadlock state, we must be recovering the system from the deadlock state. We have already seen the detection algorithms, how we could be detecting if there is a deadlock in the system. Now we will see what are the mechanisms that is used to recover from the deadlock. There are three approaches to recover from the deadlock. The first one is manually by an admin, a system admin or an operator who could be recovering it from the deadlock. The second one is to terminate one or more processes that is involved in the deadlock. The third one is to preempt the resources from the process that is involved in the deadlock. So the first one, there is nothing much technical about it. Let us see the other two, how it is done and what are the other overheads that is associated with it. Now the next one that we have is recovery from deadlock using the process termination mechanism. Again here, there are two ways of doing the same. If there are 4 processes that is involved in the deadlock, we can abort all the 4 processes that is involved in the deadlock. But if I am aborting all the 4 processes that is involved in the deadlock, it is a waste of the CPU that it is used and there is lot of overhead that might occur. Now for example, among the 4 processes, I say there were 3 processes that was at the end of the execution. That is, if the process had a burst time of, let me say, 20, the process had completed 18 burst cycles and it was just there with 2 more, or if there were some results that was already calculated, all this must be redone when a process is terminated, where the process is terminated and the process have to restart the fresh. Now the other one is where we are going to abort one process at a time and we check if the cycle is eliminated. We have seen the mechanisms of how to detect if there is a deadlock. So every time after aborting a process, we run the detection algorithm to check if there is a deadlock or not. But when we studied about your detection algorithms, we have already seen the detection algorithms are taking too many operations. So every time we are running the detection algorithm multiple times and checking if there is a deadlock and aborting one process at a time. And there also could be scenarios where it could actually demand aborting all the processes. And now here are some of the criterias. How do we choose? Now I said there are 4 processes that is involved in the deadlock. Now among the 4 processes, Should it be P1 that I would be aborting first, P2 or P3 or P4? How do I decide? So here are some of the criterias on which we decide. It could be the priority, it could be the process, how long it has executed, the resources the process has, how much more it needs to complete. So these are some of the criterias on which we would be choosing which process should be aborted or terminated. So this is about your process termination mechanism for deadlock recovery. The next mechanism we have is the resource preemption. So what do we do in resource preemption? We preempt the resources from the process that is involved in the deadlock, and we do it until the deadlock cycle is broken or until the detection algorithm tells no deadlock. But this mechanism also comes with certain issues. Now here, when I say we are preempting the resources from the process, which process resources should be preempted? So that is selecting the victim process. So selecting the victim process should not be a too much of overhead. I should not be wasting too much of time in selecting the victim itself, or I should not be using a complicated algorithms to select the victim. The other one is the rollback. Now to which point should I be rolling back? Now whenever I am preempting the resources, I preempt and roll back to the process to a certain safe state. So we have to decide to which state, to which time it should be rolled back. The last issue is the starvation. There are times the same process is always selected as the victim process. So we have to make sure that a process is selected only finite number of times as a victim process. So what happens if there is a process, say P1, and if P1 is every time selected as a victim process, the process P1 can never complete its execution and it will eventually end up with starvation. So these are some of the issues that we should take care of when we are using the mechanism process preemption. So this brings us to the end of your deadlock.